You've seen the headlines. Pakistan's economy is collapsing, growth stagnant, industries failing. The same words, the same tone, the same gloomy script. This isn't analysis, it's propaganda dressed up as economics, and every time it's followed by a familiar comparison. Pakistan's so-called failure versus India's shining growth story. But here's what those headlines don't say. India may be growing at 7%, but beneath that headline is a very different reality. India ranks 105th out of 127 countries on Global Hunger Index 2024, a serious level of hunger. Over 80 crore Indians, more than half the population, rely on free food rations to survive. The top 1% own 40% of the country's wealth, while the bottom 50% hold just 6.4%. Inequality today is worse than during the British Raj. So yes, India's growth makes good headlines, but it hides hunger, poverty, and deep inequality. Now about Pakistan. Growth plunged after 2021-22, but they don't mention why. In 2022, Pakistan was hit by one of the worst floods in its history, affecting 33 million people and causing over $30 billion in damages and losses. Fast forward to 2025, another wave of floods, this time in Punjab, once again displacing millions and disrupting key supply chains. And to that, the spillover from Indian Punjab and trade disruptions at the Afghan border. And still, Pakistan stayed standing. That isn't weakness, that's resilience. And the data now tells a different story. GDP growth is back at 3% in fiscal year 2025, projected up to 4% next year. Inflation has fallen from 23% to 4.5%, a 9-year low. Interest rates were cut from 22% to 11%. Per capita income is up 10% to $1,830. Pakistan posted its first current account surplus in 14 years, $2.1 billion. September alone saw $110 million surplus. Reserves have jumped 55% year on year to $14.5 billion. Primary fiscal surplus at 2.4% of GDP, the highest ever. Debt to GDP below 70%. And just today, the government reported a Q1 fiscal surplus of $1.5 trillion, the strongest in years. 2 successful IMF reviews, endorsements from the IMF, World Bank, ADB, IFC, global ratings upgrades from Fitch, S&P, and Moody's. And beneath these numbers, real reform, digital taxation, energy overhaul, privatization, regulatory streamlining, AI and industrial policy. Exports are climbing again, goods up 7%, services up 15%, tech up 18%. IT exports hit $1.06 billion in the first quarter of fiscal year 2026 for the first time ever. IT now makes up to 48% of all services exports. Large-scale manufacturing surged 9%, a 37-month high. And in October 2025, Pakistan's stock exchange hit an all-time high, now trading up 80% in a single year. Pakistan's mineral wealth, copper, gold, lithium, is pulling in new global investment. Inflation crushed, surpluses recorded, exports rising, markets booming. And yet, biased narratives continue. Headlines can distort reality, numbers cannot. The facts are clear. Pakistan faced climate shocks, economic pressures, and endless propaganda, and still stood firm. This is not a sinking ship. This is a nation stabilizing, reforming, and rising on its own terms.